Hello, today is Winnie the Pooh Day, and I am recognizing A. Milne, the author and creator of Winnie the Pooh. Look at his handsome sort of, I just love his intellectual appearance there with a pipe and sort of pensive looking, just like Pooh on the log to the right. So, without further ado, today is A. Milne's birthday, so happy birthday to A. Milne. All right, the handwriting of A. Milne is really, really unique. Everyone's handwriting is unique, but I've been doing this for 30 years, and I must say there's certain things about his handwriting that are especially unusual, and it shows his level of intellect and his privacy needs and his protection of family and friends. So I thought it would be great to show you a few samples of his handwriting to give you a better idea about what individual traits mean, but also holistically what certain meanings are that might be attributed to his behaviors when he lived. So, okay, let me expand this a little bit here. I'm not going to expand it too much because I want to make sure that you can at least get the full flavor of what I'm going to talk about. First of all, when you look at a handwriting sample, as a handwriting analyst, I know a lot of details, but as a person who's just your average, ordinary person who's looking at a handwriting sample, you can see how small he writes and also how everything is just so, like the form, the design, the spacing of the margins, that is a big deal. So what I wanted to show you is, in my mind's eye, I go right to this. So look at all the white space here and over here, even here, here, and here. An individual who does that kind of white space, that's the space they need between themselves and society. They need to keep that open, private space. If you do this or someone you know and love does this, they need that privacy. They need to go out into the woods and take a walk or go to the ocean at the beach line and just take a beautiful stroll, or they need to go out on their bicycle. Whatever they need to do to get away from things, get out of society's view, is really important to this individual. They need that private margin, if you will, around them. So I would say he was a very artistic person, even though he was known as the creator of Winnie the Pooh. He also had an eye for form and design. And I said to my husband, I thought he could perhaps have been an individual who was an architect or something of that nature. He has some traits in his handwriting that shows that he would have been a fantastic architect if he pursued that discipline. So obviously he didn't, and we're so glad he didn't, because frankly, he would have been a great architect, but he was an even greater creator of Winnie the Pooh, who has brought joy to many of us, including myself. Okay, his signature is really interesting. I want to point out this. AA are the initials, and Milne, M-I-L-N-E. And what's interesting about this is, number one, he's very, very, very precise in his movements of his pen. But what I wanted to really get at is this underline here. Whenever someone underlines their signature, that's a good thing, especially if it's a straight line. That always means somebody who's very self-reliant. And because it's going up in an upward slant, that always means an individual who feels very optimistic, very enthusiastic about themselves in society. Your signature shows how you feel in society. So that's how he felt. He felt very self-reliant, very independent. Also, the spacing around his words here in this whole poem, it shows that he's the kind of person that would have been very private, very recluse in some cases. Like he probably spent hours at his desk in a private area den in which he ruminated about his creations of Winnie the Pooh and all the characters. I could just see it. Plus a lot of other things too, I assume. He was a deep thinker and very, very focused on that. So I also wanted to say that his signature shows he was quite deductive in his reasoning. You can't see it here, and I want to move forward, but the I dot tells a lot about a person because it's above the stem here. See that I dot way up flying? That's optimism again, and it also shows deductive reasoning because it's like a little boomerang. So he's an individual who definitely had a lot of intellect. There are connections he makes in his handwriting that are totally different from what the normal average run-of-the-day person would do. So let me show you on another sample here. This sample shows it significantly, so that's why I wanted to move ahead. 11 Mallard Street, Chelsea, Southwest 3. I love that. And the beautiful imagery is done, the renderings are done by Mr. Shepard, and I make a notation at the end of that. But I just figured I'd let you know this was not his artwork, since I had indicated he has a great design ability. I just wanted to make sure you knew that. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little larger again, because his handwriting is so small. When someone writes very small, that always means an individual who's very focused, they're very intelligent. Einstein did that, several other scientists. Poets do that, a lot of poets, because they're very, very inward, very introverted. The more shy and recluse and timid, the more the small handwriting would be. So it doesn't always say that a person's going to be a recluse, but it is going to say that they're an introvert. They process things internally in order to express it out to the world, therefore afterward. But their first inclination, their natural innate ability, is to process things internally. So if you do this, if you write small, or if someone you know writes small, they're unlikely to be an extrovert, especially like in a large company organization where you're required to get up and give presentations. It would be frantic for a person who writes really tiny like this. So just to give you a little bit of a tutorial there. So anyway, the connections. This I love. I'll just give you a few examples here. Number one, he makes a roof from one word to another quite frequently in this sample. So I just wanted to give you that chance to see it. See how the R goes forward? 4 o'clock. The R connects to the O, which then connects to the apostrophe before the word clock. I mean, that's an individual who's just very, very bright. They can make very clean connections. They're very fluid thinking. He has a vertical slant. All the handwriting is pretty much at 90 degrees, give or take a little bit. He's probably a perfectionist because you can see the little detail of his handwriting. He was very forthright, very honest, but very covered. That's what all those connections mean. He was a person that had a lot of self-protection in mind all the time. So being a celebrity like he was in his society, it must have been very, very difficult for him. And I imagine he was very, very protective of his son, Christopher Robin, and his wife. I just can see him being hyper vigilant about individuals not trespassing on his property or gaining access to him in ways that he felt uncomfortable with. Genteel society probably wanted to honor him in different ways, social gatherings and events. And while he was very bright and could accommodate people intellectually, I think socially he was probably very awkward, and especially at first, before he really knew someone. I could just see him being very, very reserved and very objective and sort of a fact finder in some cases, but so intuitive that he was able to judge and assess individuals very quickly on the spot. So he was a very independent person. You can see that in the capital I's. All the I's are connected to the previous letters too, which is very interesting. So he did feel connected to other people, but it might have been that he just didn't appreciate imposition, if you will, from society because of his notoriety. I understand that he wanted to be a mystery writer, and I think he wrote a mystery book, but But frankly, his love for children probably came out pretty strongly in Winnie the Pooh, at least I think so, and it shows significantly in his handwriting. He was a very kind person, even though he probably hated the notoriety. I think he was very kind about it. He was obstinate, however, about society. You could see it in the word Shakespeare. See the K? When someone, I'm going to make it exaggerated, when someone makes a K where the upper portion, inverted V, is larger than the downward inverted V, that always means someone who can be somewhat obstinate to rules and regulations and corporate guidelines, etc. So this is more of an entrepreneurial person, which he did wind up being, because he made his own revenue for his sustenance, and he did quite well, as a matter of fact. Okay, and there's that lovely signature again with that underline. I thought that was really neat. Okay, now let's go on. I'm going to put that back there. Let's go to the next. Okay, this is his signature that was superimposed on the 100 Acres map. So I just wanted to show it to you in a larger format to give you a sense. So A, first of all, see these little hooks in his handwriting and sort of triangular movements? That always means tenacity. And depending on where it is in the handwriting, it can mean tenacious about learning new information. In this case, the tenacity is about the past, about learning about the past and finding information from the past. He might have been very interested in history, as a matter of fact. So I don't know that for a fact. So for those of you who are historical experts, you might be aware, or those who are into the literary artists and creators like A. Milne. I would say he probably drew on experiences and information from the past to create current storylines for his characters. And I know a lot of it was based on his son, Christopher Robin. Okay, who was one of the characters, of course. Okay, and then any angle in handwriting, this is particularly written darkly, so that means great memory, sensuality, probably loved great food and those kinds of simple pleasures, but also had a great memory, would not forget a thing, and a very direct individual, and because of the spaces between each letter, and if you do this, it means this for you too. It means intuition. So again, his strong intuition. And then look at the line underneath the signature. That's a line. That's not a line on the map, folks. So anyway, that shows an individual, again, self-reliant, and because it's going upward, optimistic. And see how it makes a hook here before it goes into the line? Again, that means acquisition, tenacity, learning knowledge, grasping things, pulling people into his agenda. It can mean a lot of different things, but it's usually positive. Sometimes it can be negative if a person's too aggressive, but he's not too aggressive in nature. But he had to be aggressive out in society, so I imagine that's why his signature is a little bit more aggressive in that regard. Okay. Well, I thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this brief tutorial and this recognition of A. Milne, the creator of Winnie the Pooh and Friends. And I just love Winnie the Pooh, and I hope you do too, and all of the lovely characters that go along with him. And my name is Leanne Boas, and if you want to follow me, go to Periscope, InkBlinksRadio.com, right here, and you can go email me if you want to send me a sample and have me do a reading for you at inkblinks@gmail.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at InkBlinksRadio, just like it says right here. I've really enjoyed our talk. And again, if you want to communicate with me, please feel free to do so. I love your feedback. I love doing handwriting analysis. And this is one of my favorite characters, A. Milne, not to mention his creation, Winnie the Pooh. Thank you for listening.